Well, that are like Fred Flintstone. Just get in the front of the engine compartment and start running.
Welcome to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoatings. On this episode of Sam's Garage, Sam and Kevin Ford tackle the fuel tank in the Jeep Rock Crawler. Sam and Doug Harris mock up the new engine for the Alpha One GTO. Then Sam showcases several heat protection products from Design Engineering. And we go back to NHOU to learn more about how their products could protect your vehicle from rust and corrosion. Coming up, Sam and Kevin work on the installation and mock-up of the fuel cell in the Jeep Rock Crawler. When rock crawling, it's important to have a proper fuel cell that can withstand the abuse. If the Jeep rolls over, the fuel cell will keep the fuel where it belongs, which is in the tank.
Today we're going to be doing the fuel system mock-up on our Rock Crawler Jeep. We got ourselves a 10-gallon fuel cell. This is a racing fuel cell with a bladder on the inside.
Right, it's pretty important if we roll over, we keep the fuel from sloshing around while we're climbing all of these big rocks. And this thing fit perfect. I'm glad you had this laying around for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's designed for a JL two-door Jeep that fits in the back. And you did do some modification here, but it looks like we're going to be able to make this work on our system. We have a -10 feed, -8 return. Should be plenty for your fuel system.
Right.
We'll make the fuel system underneath the truck so that it's completely protected, and we got to make sure that we don't hit any rocks or anything on the obstacle course that may puncture that fuel system.
Yeah, we'll keep the fuel pump and the lines tucked up tight and all that, but we're going to do that later because right now we're just mocking up. I got to make sure we can fit a seat back here. I want to bring the kids, the dog, the fam.
But not only that, you want the powertrain in place with the exhaust in place so that you know exactly where to run your fuel lines because you want them to be the safest. And really lastly installed so that you know you got the room for it and you're going to be safe. Now this is a lift style. We're going to have to pull the fuel from the tank.
Right.
But as long as we put the fuel pump underneath and you get that natural siphon effect, you get the 1 bar atmosphere pressure that's going to help push that fuel to the fuel pump, and we should be okay as long as we use a big, nice fuel pump.
Yeah, if we've got the -10 coming down, we don't need more than 8 going forward, so we should be fine.
And what we're going to do is we're going to have Kevin and Travis mock up a bracket under here and give you an air gap. And you want that air gap so that when if you get wet or if you want to hose off the Jeep, you don't have any rust issues in the future underneath.
Yeah, and keep some rattling down or any squeaking, with everything flexing.
Absolutely. And what we're going to do here is make sure that this thing is mounted both from the bottom and the top because this rock crawler is going to be going through so many obstacles that we want the fuel cell to be 1, protected, and 2, stay in place at all times.
All right.
Let's get started. All right, we got our fuel cell completely installed. Matt did an awesome job fabricating some brackets. We've got them tacked in place because this is the mock-up stage.
Right, we're just trying to get a rough estimate of where we're going to be. If we're happy with it, we can weld these up and be finished, but we still got to put a back seat in here. We've got the tools and all the bags and stuff we're going to carry with us. We want to make sure we're happy with it so we don't have to do a lot of cutting and grinding to get the brackets out or move anything.
Absolutely, and we got ourselves an air gap right here. When we go to finally mount this, we're going to isolate it with rubber insulators.
Yeah, we've got them tight right now, top and and bottom. So whatever we put on top, we'll put on the bottom, it'll be the same.
And we're gonna go ahead, we have plenty of room to wrap it with some DEI heat wrap. And anytime you guys are building a car, truck, Jeep, and you have investment like this fuel cell with 3 open ports, take the time to invest in some caps and cap off those ports, keeping the inside of the fuel system completely clean. Because if you're going to the body shop or something, or you're in a metal fab shop and there's a lot of grinding going on, it's in the air, it's gonna get inside your tank.
Yeah, we don't want to contaminate that and then have to take it apart and clean it or even replace it. You know?
Yep. Very important. And if you guys have hard lines in your classic cars and the hard line's got some integrity and you're going to do a fuel system, blow out the hard line. Make sure you get all the debris out of it. It'll protect your investment, making it last a long time.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. The mock-up phase is an important step when doing any engine swap. Sam and Doug have fabricated custom mounts to install the new V8 engine in the Alpha 1 GTO. During the mock-up, they could check for clearance and fitment issues. If any modifications need to be made, they can be done before the final installation.
Well, we are at the most exciting portion of our project, and in our case, we're going to be doing a small block Ford Windsor pushrod motor stroked out to a 347 in place of the factory 280Z motor that we went with.
Yeah, and the really cool part about it is the 280Z motor weighs about 450 pounds, and the motor that we build is going to weigh about 425. Triple the horsepower, gobs and gobs of torque. Really a out-of-sight thing to do.
It's going to be awesome once it's done. Now, we have a fiberglass front end, as you can see, with a really long nose. So Doug decided, let's go ahead and take it off because we didn't have the room that we needed to get the engine hoist and get the engine in the engine bay. So that was a great idea.
Yeah, and it's real important. This engine's going to go in and out, because we're going to have to make sure we've got all the proper angles, all the proper measurements, and what you don't want to do is scratch or destroy or do anything inside of the engine bay or on the bodywork of the car. So for us, it's just easy to move the front clip. The engine mounts, everything that was here was custom built, so we had to get everything into place. We had to make all of the cuts, and remember, always measure twice, cut once. Then we had to weld everything in just to make sure we got everything just right. And it's also real important to make sure your engine is level. So you want to make sure your rake and your engine level is correct. Makes the build go a lot easier.
And you know, Matt did an awesome job with the cross member, the motor mounts, everything that he fabricated under there. Not only did it stiffen the frame rails that holds the engine in place.
Yeah, and that's real important because when we're going ahead and we're laying some real power down, that frame is going to want to twist. So as we did this, we were able to box everything, stiffen everything up to handle the horsepower and torque.
And then you have to remember that when you're welding your parts in and you're putting your motor in, you got to make it serviceable. So if you notice when we took it out, we put notches in because the motor mounts are angled, and that gives you room for the straight studs to go down into those notches and be able to be bolted into place.
Make it so you can get to all the nuts and bolts and everything on it.
And what we did was we went with factory Mustang motor mounts that are rubber insulated, because when you guys go to solid motor mounts or you go to a urethane motor mount, it becomes really hard on the car. It vibrates it to death.
Yeah, it's really tough on it, and by going with the rubber, it softens everything out. This car is going to be driven on the track as well as the street, so we want to make it really streetable.
Absolutely, and those rubber insulators make a huge difference. And we did all this for mock-up. We're going to take the engine out, we're going to final dress it up, we're going to go into the engine bay and remove anything else that we need to do, or maybe even gusset the crossmember if need be. You want to consider everything. One, you want to make sure you got plenty of room for your exhaust, your headers, your front accessories, your radiator and fan, but you also want to make sure that they got the right rake to the car, to the motor in the car, so that you can access the bell housing bolts and be able to service the transmission. Now, there were some things that we removed, like for instance, the stock fuel system, because we're going to be running our own. We removed a lot of the AC lines because they were in our way, so we're going to go in with custom lines, and we got room for headers. We took out all the emissions because we don't need those things anymore.
Yeah.
We used some old valve covers because we didn't want anything to be scratched up. We mocked up the oil pan. It's very important that when you're doing this, you mock up the oil pan with the motor and everything so that you know the oil pan is going to clear.
Yeah, and one of the really cool things here is we went ahead and we measured everything out, and always make sure you take the time and you measure it twice, mock it up the best you can. We used the hem saw when we were going ahead and cutting everything out. We had good, perfect, straight cuts. It was a beautiful way to do it. It made our job really easy.
Absolutely, and you know the tools make everything so much better, and the quality of the work at the end is that much
Oh,
better.
yeah.
So now what we're gonna do is we're done mocking this up. We're gonna take it out. We're gonna finish up the engine by dressing it up, and then we're gonna take the engine bay, take out everything else we need, and get it ready to go to the body shop.
Now back to more Sam's Garage. Sam's going to take us through the process of installing a few products from DEI and how they'll isolate your vehicle's engine parts from damaging heat. The products that he'll be installing include spark plug boots and starter wrap, which will help insulate and protect from heat. Sam also has something in store to help keep your engine coolant temps under control.
Let's face it, guys. We're battling heat every day with these cars, especially if you have an engine swap or if you're equipped with any big block engine. Big blocks tend to kill starters. Or any of you GM guys, the last 20 to 25 years, your cooling fans don't come on till about 230 degrees. At that point, you start to cook things underneath the engine bay. So we're gonna start by insulating some of our items underneath the hood by using DEI's products, and in this case, we're gonna do spark plug boot insulators. Now, you guys are usually normally used to the spark plug boot packaging coming with a pair or a kit for your spark plug boot ends. In this case, there have kits now where they come with a complete sleeve to where if you guys are building custom wires and you want to route them, before you crimp the ends on, you can go ahead and put the wires in the sleeve. That way the entire thing is protected from the distributor cap or ignition coil all the way down to the spark plug. So whenever you guys are doing spark plug wires, you want to use a tool like this to grab the spark plug wire boot. In my case, I like to use something like this, a side hose clamp. And what you want to do is you grab the boot. If your boots and spark plugs are good shape, you don't want them to break. You twist the boot left to right, separating it from the body of the spark plug, and then you can pull them off. And you always want to do something like this, one at a time, so you don't mess up the firing order on the ignition system. So take your spark plug boot off, slip your protector at the end of it. You always want to use some dielectric grease so that in the future you want to do the spark plug swap, you're not going to have anything stick. You just take a little bit of dielectric grease, put it at the end of the boot. We're going to repeat this process across the board, and that'll keep our spark plug boots from hitting the headers and burning up. Now we're going to move on to the cooling system. DEI has a product called Radiator Relief, and this is going to lower the temperature in your cooling system by up to 30 degrees. That's huge. Now, there's a few different ways you can install this into your system. If you're not going to do a drain and fill, you can use a turkey baster like I just did. This radiator has a cavity right there that allows me to pull out the fluid that way. Second way is to drain it out with a drain plug if you're equipped with one. And the third easy way is if you have a Mighty Vac with shop air, you can go ahead and suck some out. Then you're going to pour this bottle in. You want to make sure to shake it really well. And what this is going to do is it's going to reduce it up to 30 degrees. Now, for you race car drivers, drag racing or road racing, this is going to be important because they hate it when we spill coolant onto the track if we break or something. It's got a lot of lubricity in there. It takes a long time to clean it up. You empty your cooling system, pour distilled water in there, a couple of bottles of this. You're going to have the protection and the cooling effect and not make anybody upset at the local racetrack. Now we're going to go ahead and put a starter wrap on the starter. Now it's a good idea to protect the starter with the DEI wrap, especially in a big block situation. And when you guys install this wrap, you want to make sure to first disconnect the battery because the one side is conductive. It's aluminum. So if you don't have the battery disconnected, you can create an arc just by simply slipping your shield in place. Now, I highly recommend you removing the starter. You don't have to completely disconnect it, but do remove the starter so that gives you room to go around the starter, getting over the cables, put it around the whole starter, and then go ahead and tighten it using your tool that they provide. And that way it'll secure the blanket in place, keeping anything from flopping out of its way or dragging on the floor. That's gonna make for a nice, really tight installation, and it's gonna really protect our starter, keeping those starters living. All right, well, we showed you guys a little bit of heat management using DEI products. We addressed the spark plug wires, we addressed the cooling system, and most important of all, being that it's a big block, we did a starter wrap. That's gonna save the starter. And we showed you drag racers how not to get in trouble at the track.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. We are back with Joe DuPont at NHOU. He's going to show us how their one-of-a-kind oil undercoating will protect your vehicle from rust and corrosion. The oil is specifically designed to creep into the hard-to-reach areas of the undercarriage to provide long-lasting coverage. Best of all, it's eco-friendly and it will not harm the environment.
Hi, William. So what brings you here?
I heard the oil was a little bit better, so know nothing about it.
You want to keep it.
The wife does too.
The wife does, yes.
She wants it more than me.
Okay. And some of these Jeeps, you know, in particular this year, they do have some issues with over the wheel well inside the frame. The problem is these holes right here, what happens is they collect dirt and dust, and then that kind of retains the moisture. Inside the frame is unfinished. And so it's prone to rust from the inside out. Now, this is an extreme case. In the back there, it looks like we have lost some structural integrity, which is, I guess, why it's necessitating the frame replacement.
Yes, we do have a frame on order for it because of this situation, but I want to get it oiled so I don't run into this problem again.
Right.
Yeah, because right here, I've got all this dirt up in here, and it's
It holds the moisture. Yeah.
right there. I've got it right here.
Yep. Mudding and all that is all your dirt get in there. When you get your new frame, you're going to come right back to us, and we're going to put oil inside the frame. And so even if you do now accumulate more dirt and dust in there, that is actually just going to be like one more layer of protection. The oil's going to stay and be a barrier against the moisture. The biggest problem with Jeeps is the mud and the dirt that accumulates inside the frame holds the moisture and everything rots from the inside out.
The brake lines, the fuel lines, I'm also looking at those too.
Right.
Because obviously those are going to get undercoated, oiled.
Brake lines, electrical connections, inside the panels, inside the frame, outside the frame. So we can't see inside the frame, but what the oil's going to do is, I showed you the back of that truck.
Yep.
It's going to creep. So if it can creep 6-8 inches on the back of that truck, it's going to do the same thing, which is going to encapsulate the whole interior of that frame. That's critical because we can't get 100% coverage when it's inside.
We do go off-roading with it, so
So if you go off-roading, so this is going to be a challenge now. So if you get a lot of mud on there, what do you do?
what do I do?
Yeah, if it's muddy, you're going to power wash it?
No.
What do you do?
I throw 2 sprinklers underneath it and I let them run.
Okay, so just keep in mind that.
Then I'll go to the car wash.
Okay.
You know, that way I'm not clogging the car wash
Right.
with
right.
the mud.
The next guy isn't getting it on right. I would use a hose and not high pressure if you can help it, because high
Okay.
pressure is going to remove oil while you're removing the dirt. And what
Gotcha.
you may want to consider with the Jeep, if you're going off-roading, is maybe you come back in 6 months and have it touched up.
Okay.
Okay? Not going to be as expensive as a full treatment. We'll just touch it up and maintain it.
Yes.
You have your frame replacement.
Yep.
Come back. Spring is a great time because
Yeah.
spring actually, condensation, temperatures get warm, it accelerates corrosion. Drive it all summer, bring it back in the fall, put it away with the oil on it. And then what we'll do is we'll oil everything that has rust, including the inside of the frame, the outside of the frame.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is never stop Mother Nature, but slow her down. So you come back every year, and I'll guarantee you that won't happen again if you're diligent with the